Karim Benzema for 300 million euros, Ruben Neves for 165 million, and Conte for 200 million euros are just a few of the big names moving to the Saudi Pro League in the coming season. The Saudis plan to continue acquiring players through these massive money contracts until they become globally recognized as one of the world's top 10 leagues, which leaves a lot for football fans to question. Is all of this big spending by the Saudis going to pay off? Or will it be another Chinese Super League flop? Is it possible that the rumors are true and younger stars like Mbappe, Rashford, and Vinicious Jr. get picked up? And is the league ever really going to make it into the top 10 like the Saudis plan? Or could we be looking at the beginning of the next Premier League? According to recent rankings by the sports intelligence company 21st Group, the Saudi Pro League is still only the 58th best league in the world. However, there's something special about the SPL when compared to Serie A, the Premier League, Bundesliga, and almost every other league around the world. The entire Saudi Pro League, including each individual team, is owned and managed by the government, not the standard private investors approach. That means that the Saudi government is making decisions for the benefit of the nation, not always to create the best team possible. But it also means that there's no regulation of any kind, which is why we are seeing such large spending from these clubs, when really it's just government oil money, because financial fair play is not enforced whatsoever. The grand plan is to get 3 big name signings on each of the top 4 clubs in the league. So for example, Ronaldo at Al Nassr and Benzema at Al Ittihad, as well as a European manager mixed with other lesser known international players. Once they create a globally recognized league with respected players and coaches, the Saudi government will hand it off to private investors and make a profit while at the same time increasing Saudi Arabia's perception as a country. If everything goes perfectly, this will happen. But already big problems have shown themselves. Yes, they've attracted plenty of older superstars such as Benzema and Ronaldo, but they are still getting rejected in most cases, especially with younger players. Messi reportedly rejected a contract worth 1.7 billion euros over 3 years, choosing instead to come to the MLS for around $140 million, along with many other big-name players rejecting contracts such as Son Heung-min, Luka Modric, and Jamie Vardy. A big reason players reject these offers are due to cultural differences in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has very different customs and social norms when compared to Europe and the rest of the world, and it is also consistently under fire for human rights violations, as well as having a strict government who regulates media and religion among other things. A lot of players who reject contracts do not want to move themselves and their families into such a different environment than they are used to. But perhaps the biggest problem of them all with the Saudi Pro League, the lack of Champions League. The UEFA Champions League is the biggest trophy you can win in club football, and only behind the World Cup in terms of the biggest trophy in football. So as a player, especially a young player trying to make a career, you want a Champions League trophy. Careers are made in the Champions League. Cristiano Ronaldo, for example, is probably most famous for being the king of the Champions League. As a young player, it's one of the few places you have an opportunity to prove yourself with the whole world watching, that no amount of oil money can buy. The SPL just isn't the spot to go as a player who wants to win it all. Even a world-class player like Mbappe hasn't achieved a Champions League trophy, so I want to use him as an example. Let's imagine Mbappe goes to the current Saudi Arabia League after he leaves the legendary 2017 Monaco team. At that point in his career, he's already considered a very good up-and-coming talent, but hasn't proven himself to be the future of football like he has since then. Obviously, this transfer would make headlines because it would be for a huge sum of money, but after the original move, Mbappe would have fallen out of public eye. Even if Mbappe was to score 5 goals a game in the SPL, most people would dismiss it. His personal image and brand also suffers because he goes to a league that many discredit and simply doesn't get the press. Whereas by moving to PSG, he plays with Messi, Neymar, Hakimi, and plenty of other world-class players, which keeps Mbappe constantly in the spotlight and gives him the chance to prove himself, which he does. He becomes League One's top scorer, wins the Golden Boot 5 times in a row, 2 times Best Young Player, 4 times TM Player of the Year, and 3 times French Footballer of the Year. Would all of that be possible in the Saudi Pro League? I don't think so. The lack of Champions League definitely hurts the Saudi League and makes it hard to attract young players. But it is possible that another factor could come into play that makes the Champions League irrelevant, and it has to do with the new Club World Cup. FIFA has been hard at work creating a new club tournament that will premiere in 2025 in the United States. They have promised to deliver a tournament almost as hyped as the World Cup that takes place every 4 years with exactly the same format as the Nations World Cup. Obviously, there are a few problems with this, such as the fact that club teams are much more volatile than national teams and have vastly different regulations between leagues. But if they could work around these, the new Club World Cup has a chance of overtaking the Champions League as being the biggest trophy in club football. If this were to happen, players like Haaland, Mbappe, Saka, and Bellingham would line up to join the Saudi League, which probably would make UEFA want to either include the Saudi League in the UCL or pressure the European teams from not participating in the FIFA Club World Cup. Either way, the Saudi League would have the chance to become the top league and overtake the rest almost overnight. There are two main sides to the argument of whether the SPL is going to work. One is that as long as the money is there, players are going to go, and the other is that it is unsustainable. After all, it's beginning to look very similar to the Chinese Super League bubble in 2016. The Chinese Super League was also funded by the government for the purpose of getting the population interested in football and building a league to attract private investors. It started with Didier Drogba and Nicolas Anelka joining the CSL and David Beckham becoming a global ambassador for the league, similar to how Ronaldo is doing for Saudi. From there, the Chinese started offering huge contracts and signing players like Paulinho, Hulk, Alexandre Pato, and Carlos Tevez. They were the leading spending force in football until they peaked in 2016 when the league wasn't getting enough traction and ran into money problems. Most of the players finished their contracts and retired or left the league entirely. The overarching reason why the Chinese Super League failed was simply because it did not grow enough to justify the amount of money being spent on it. At the end of the day, professional football is a business, and the goal is to make money. With the Saudis spending so much money, they are going to have to receive a return on investment somewhere. Ronaldo, for example, since joining Al Nassr, ticket sales have gone up 143%, and ticket prices have gone up by 1,500%, which is significant, no doubt. Don't get me wrong, but it is expected. The citizens of Saudi Arabia are all for the new SPL. It's the rest of the world that needs convincing. And honestly, I'm not sure how that's going to go. Personally, I think most football fans know about the Saudi League, they just don't want to watch it. From what I can see, the actual level of play is pretty good. The teams are generally well organized and they play good football, but that's not the problem. The rest of the world is already invested in the Serie A, Premier League, MLS, La Liga, and their hometown league. Why watch Al Hilal play Al Nassr when you can watch the Manchester Derby? People simply do not care enough to know when the Saudi games even are. I wanted to put this to the test though, so I decided to do a little experiment. I asked 50 people in real life and on the Omegle football section if they knew which club Ronaldo was on, which of course is Al Nassr, and then after that I would ask them if they have ever watched an Al Nassr game or any other game in the Saudi Pro League. Out of these people, 47 knew that Ronaldo played for Al Nassr, although I did try to ask people who knew football. But the interesting part came when I asked whether or not they have actually watched a game, and the response was that only 3 out of the 47 have ever seen a Saudi Pro League game. That means only about 3% of football fans that knew of the league's existence have ever seen a game, and honestly this lines up exactly with what I expected. Just knowing about the Saudi League and the players that play there is not enough for us to actually watch a game. The Saudis need to make games more appealing to watch on TV and more accessible to the rest of the world if they want the league to be successful. It's not available on Paramount or NBC or any other common streaming service. The only place I could find it was on Quora Live, which is probably pirated anyway. When I looked it up, it seems like you have to buy a subscription to Shadid here in the US, which offers a monthly subscription of $18. And according to Google, it is not even legal to watch the SPL in the UK because no streaming service has a contract with them yet. And it seems like the best place to watch it was on the One Football YouTube channel. This is a huge problem that the Saudis need to address for the success of the SPL. While we're talking about the sustainability of the SPL League, I have to bring up the lack of academies and facilities. The Saudis need to start transitioning away from aging superstars to young talent, and the easiest way to do that is by having good academies. The idea is that you bring in young players who show potential and then develop them until they are good enough to join the senior team. And of course, good facilities and training staff help players improve while they are at a club, which is going to be essential for the Saudis. Creating a world-class league takes time. The SPL was only founded 47 years ago in 1976, compared to most other European leagues founded in the late 19th century, such as 135 years ago for the English Football League in 1888 and 125 years ago for Serie A in 1898. The lack of history and tradition in the Saudi Pro League is something that just takes time to form. I mean, pretty much the only chant Al Nassr ever does is for Ronaldo. Part of the greatness of football is the deep history in each club, rivalry, and supporter group, which is something that is going to take time to come to the SPL. But perhaps the biggest question that everyone wants answered is, will this new Saudi league bring down the quality of Europe's top leagues and teams? The buyout of Newcastle United in the Premier League and now the movement of all these players to the SPL has us worried about whether the Saudis are taking over football. But when I stopped to think about it in the research of this video, I realized a few things. The first is that the European leagues have been doing this for decades. The best players from North America, South America, Africa, and Asia end up in Europe because that's where the money is. In my opinion, the Saudi Pro League should be doing the exact same thing the European leagues have been doing. Go into South America and Africa and pick up the most talented young players possible. This will allow them to create careers and become a league known for the development of young players instead of a retirement league. Investing in scouts in overseas academies almost always pays off in the long run. But for now, they are only looking at buying out aging players in Europe. Football is a business, and we can't blame the players for taking these massive, life-changing contracts. Also, oftentimes selling these superstars actually helps out the European clubs. These clubs are usually already looking at getting rid of players such as Ronaldo and get the best possible compensation from a Saudi club. They can use the extra money and room to bring in a younger player to fill the position. There is no shortage of talent in this world, especially in the younger generations. So if you are worried about the Saudi league stealing all the stars, don't be. New players will step up. New stars will always emerge. If anything, the success of the Saudi Pro League means more great football, more great players, and another addition to the world of football. But I would love to know what you think and if you agree or not. So let me know in the comments down below. I plan on continuing to create more videos like this, so if you enjoyed or learned something new, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out, and thank you so much for watching.